I don't have a total plan here, but we are going to read the second chapter of Animal Farm. I did want to say a couple of things real quick. Today is election day, so vote. If you've been paying attention at all to the stuff that I've been saying, I'm not going to use this platform today to tell you how to vote. I'm just going to tell you to vote. Participate in the process. And the more you learn about the process, the more you're going to want to understand what's going on with politicians and how they vote, why they vote, and all these different things. And I think a lot of you will really be surprised at how the system really works. So I encourage everyone to get out there and vote. Participate in the process, understand what's going on, understand how we've gotten here. Don't listen to just sound bites. Don't listen to memes. Don't really study. I think regardless of which side of the spectrum that you're on, I think we can all agree that the last 4 years have been 4 or 5 years have been a little rough. So make sure that you really know what you're saying as opposed to what you've been told. All right. So again, enough of that soapbox. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Go election. We all know where I stand. I stand on the side of books and knowledge and actual freedom. But again, like I said, we're going to read Animal Farm. That's what we're going to do. There we go. Here we are. So we are reading Animal Farm for a variety of reasons. I'm going to try to do this more often. Unfortunately, yesterday we had the angiogram, and Sunday I was stressing out about the angiogram. So we didn't read on Sunday or Monday. And I'm a little ADD, and we're going to miss days sometimes, and that's okay. And we're going to muscle through. And here we are, chapter 2. Synopsis. So what's happened, what we've had established, if you weren't around for chapter 1, is Farmer is like a bumpkin, like an idiot kind of person, kind of that stereotype. Not all farmers are like that. Actually, some farmers are some of the most intelligent people I know. There's so much science that goes into growing things, which I'm just now learning as I'm started gardening. But so mad respect for farmers. But that is not, it's a trope. So that's where we are in the book. And then this character Major, which you can see here dies in the first line. He is a large, prize-winning, hog, and he's come to the end of his life, and he's basically planted the seed in the animals that life sucks. Their whole purpose is just to die and serve the humans, and it sucks, and they should do something about it. So, and they get fired up, and the way that the seed is planted, it's like a slow burn, right? They don't necessarily expect rebellion in a day, but it's planting a seed, and then that seed plants, that's why people in power always try to control thought, because a seed really can spread and change a generation. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And then, but also one thing to note is that as they were, immediately they said everyone was accepted, and then they immediately had to add qualifications to it. So it's it's already kind of letting us know that maybe, they might be righteous in what they're doing, but implementing this utopia. And this is the problem you see with progressives, right? I'm not a progressive. A lot of people think I'm a progressive now. I'm not. I've always been an independent. I just weigh each thing on its own merit and then make my decisions based on what the hell it is, like I thought everybody did. Apparently humans are way more tribal than I thought, but whatever. You learn shit every day. I'm a nerd. I spend a lot of time by myself. So sometimes I'm not sure how and why people think the things that they do. And then I'm genuinely shocked. And I'm like, wow, how did you even get there? Anyway, but let's just get into it. There's a lot. And if you want to go at chapter 1, please go back and watch the first video. I just want to get in. So let's note the time so we can cut right to this. All right. 3 nights later, old Major died peacefully in his sleep. His body was buried at the foot of the orchard. This was early in March. During the next 3 months, there was much secret activity. Remember that this speech kind of ignited this movement. Major's speech had given to the more intelligent animals on the farm a completely new outlook on life. They did not know when the rebellion, big capital R, predicted by Major would take place. Reading books with me is like reading the Amplified Bible, so just be mentally prepared for that. And there will be asides. They did not know when the rebellion predicted by Major would take place. They had no reason for thinking that it would be within their own lifetime, but they saw clearly that it was their duty to prepare for it. The work of teaching and organizing the others fell naturally upon the pigs, who were generally recognized as being the cleverest of the animals. Preeminent among the pigs were two young boars named Snowball and Napoleon, whom Mr. Jones is the farmer, was breeding up for sale. Which is actually an interesting thing to think about, because that line's important, because we already have established in the story that the pigs that are breeding up for sale, you know what? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. You know what? I think they're just right. Anyway, scratch that thought. That will happen too, because I'll have a thought and go, that thought's dumb. And then I will dismiss that thought. See, I can't be changed. Napoleon was a large, rather fierce-looking Berkshire boar. I was thinking that maybe they were like Major before them were going to be live long time, and what implications that might have to the story. I didn't catch that my first read-through. Anyway, Snowball was a more vivacious pig than Napoleon, quicker in speech and more inventive, but was not considered to have the same depth of character. All the other male pigs on the farm were porkers. The best known among them was a small fat pig named Squealer, I love these names, with very round cheeks, twinkling eyes, nimble movements, and a shrill voice. He was a brilliant talker, and when he was arguing some difficult point, he had a way of skipping from side to side and whisking his tail, which was somehow very persuasive. The others said of Squealer that he could turn black into white. Neat skill. Scary skill, if you really think about it. These three had elaborated old Major's teachings into a complete system of thought, to which they gave the name of animalism. Several nights a week, after Mr. Jones was asleep, they held secret meetings in the barn and expounded the principles of animalism to the others. At the beginning, they met with much stupidity and apathy. Some of the animals talked of the duty of loyalty to Mr. Jones, whom they referred to as Master, or made elementary remarks such as, "Mr. Jones feeds us. If he were gone, we should starve to death." This is pushing it back against animalism. These are the responses. Others ask such questions as, "Why should we care what happens after we are dead?" Or, that's so stupid. Do you not love your children? Like, come on now. What's that quote? The wise man knows to plant a tree knowing that he'll never sit under its branches or whatever. Like, come on. Or, if this rebellion is to happen anyway, what difference does it make whether we work for it or not? Well, because that is a large assumption, right? Because it might not happen anyway. That's kind of the idea. The people who would want to stop the rebellion, they're going to be actively working against it once they become aware. Anyway, it's apathy. You have to action. Faith without action is dead. That's in the Bible. Come on now. What difference does it make whether we work for it or not? Always improve in everything all the time, just for the sake of improving. The only person you're against is yourself. But every day get better. And not like in a I have to way. It's more of like an I get to way. Like, why would you not want to? It doesn't make any sense to me. And the pigs had great difficulty in making them seem that this was contrary to the spirit of animalism. It's hard to convince people. The stupidest questions of all were asked by Molly, the white mare. She was in the first chapter, like, she was kind of the superficial trope. I look beautiful, that's all that matters kind of trope. The very first question she asked Snowball was, "Will there still be sugar after the rebellion?" "No," said Snowball firmly. "We have no means of making sugar on this farm. Besides, you do not need sugar. You will have all the oats and hay you want." "And shall I still be allowed to wear ribbons in my mane?" asked Molly. "Comrade," said Snowball, "those ribbons that you are so devoted to are the badge of slavery. Can you not understand that liberty is worth more than ribbons?" Because she would have to give up the ribbons, because you can't make them. Molly agreed, but she did not sound very convinced. The pigs had an even harder struggle to counteract the lies put about by Moses, the tame raven. Moses, who is Mr. Jones' special pet, was a spy and a talebearer, but he was also a clever talker. He claimed to know of the existence of a mysterious country called Sugar Candy Mountain, to which all animals went when they died. It was situated somewhere up in the sky, a little distance beyond the clouds, Moses said. In Sugar Candy Mountain, it was Sunday 7 days a week. Clover was in season all the year round, and lump sugar and linseed cake grew on the hedges. I've never had linseed cake, and I'd like to try some. The animals hated Moses because he told tales and did no work. But some of them believed in Sugar Candy Mountain, and the pigs had to argue very hard to persuade them there was no such place. Their most faithful disciples were the two-cart horses, Boxer and Clover. These two had great difficulty in thinking anything out for themselves, but having once accepted the pigs as their teachers, they absorbed everything that they were told and passed it on the other animals by simple arguments. They were unfailing in their attendance of the secret meetings in the barn and led the singing of Beasts of England, with which the meetings always ended. Now, as it turned out, the rebellion was achieved much earlier and much more easily than anyone had expected. I know I changed the words there, sorry. In past years, Mr. Jones, although a hard master, had been a capable farmer, but of late he had fallen on evil days. He had become much disheartened after losing money in a lawsuit and had taken to drinking more than was good for him. Poor guy. Now we need a prequel to find out what happened to this dude. So anyway, for whole days at a time, he would lounge in his Windsor chair in the kitchen, reading the newspapers, drinking, and occasionally feeding Moses on crusts of bread soaked in beer. Just sounds like a beaten man. It sucks. His men were idle and dishonest. The fields were full of weeds, the buildings wanted roofing, the hedges were neglected, and the animals were underfed. June came and the hay was almost ready for cutting. On Midsummer's Eve, which was a Saturday, Mr. Jones went into Willingdon and got so drunk at the Red Lion that he did not come back till midday on Sunday. The men had milked the cows in the early morning and then had gone out rabbiting without bothering to feed the animals. Gotta feed the folks. Bread and circuses, friends. Bread's important on that bit. When Mr. Jones got back, he immediately went to sleep on the drawing room sofa with the news of the world over his face, so that when evening came, the animals were still unfed. There's another quote, I can't remember where, they said that any civilization is only 3 meals away from anarchy, and it seems like we are about to find out. At last, they could stand it no longer. One of the cows broke in the door of the store shed with her horn, and all the animals began to help themselves from the bends. It was just then that Mr. Jones woke up. The next moment, he and his 4 men were in the store shed with whips in their hands, lashing out in all the directions. This was more than the hungry animals could bear. With one accord, though nothing of the kind had been planned beforehand, they flung themselves upon their tormentors. Jones and his men suddenly found themselves being butted and kicked from all sides. The situation was quite out of their control. As such things happen. They had never seen animals behave like this before, and this sudden uprising of creatures whom they were used to thrashing and maltreating just as they chose frightened them almost out of their wits. After only a moment or two, they gave up trying to defend themselves and took to their heels. A minute later, all 5 of them were in full flight down the cart track that led to the main road, with the animals pursuing them in triumph. Ha! Miss Jones looked out of the bedroom window, saw what was happening, hurriedly flung a few possessions into a carpet bag, and slipped out of the farm by another way. Moses sprang off his perch and flapped after her, croaking loudly. Meanwhile, the animals had chased Jones and his men out onto the road and slammed the 5-barred gate behind them. And so, almost before they knew what was happening, the rebellion had been successfully carried through. Jones was expelled and the manor farm was theirs. For the first few minutes, the animals could hardly believe in their good fortune. Their first act was to gallop in a body right round the boundaries of the farm, as though to make quite sure that no human being was hiding anywhere upon it. Then they raced back to the farm buildings to wipe out the last traces of Jones' hated reign. The harness room at the end of the stables was broken open. The bits, the nose rings, the dog chains, the cruel knives with which Mr. Jones had been used to castrate the pigs and lambs were all flung down the well. The reins, the halters, the blinkers, the degrading nose bags were thrown onto the rubbish fire which was burning in the yard. So were the whips. All the animals capered with joy when they saw the whips going up in flames. Snowball also threw onto the fire the ribbons with which the horses' manes and tails had usually been decorated on market days. Ribbons, he said, should be considered as clothes, which are the mark of a human being. All animals should go naked. When Boxer heard this, he fetched the small straw hat which he wore into summer to keep the flies out of his ears and flung it onto the fire with the rest. You see? That's bad. You need that, dude. You can't make blanket statements like that. Nuance. This book is an indictment of like everyone and everything. It basically says like use your brains and don't be dorks. At the end of anyway, that's my takeaway. We'll get there. In a very little while, the animals had destroyed everything that reminded them of Mr. Jones. Napoleon then, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. What are you doing? Napoleon then led them back to the store shed and served out a double ration of corn to everybody, with 2 biscuits for each dog. Then they sang Beasts of England from end to end 7 times running, which I will spare you from doing. And after that, they settled down for the night and slept as they had never slept before. But they woke at dawn as usual, and suddenly remembering the glorious thing that had happened, they all raced out into the pasture together. A little way down the pasture, there was a knoll that commanded a view of most of the farm. The animals rushed to the top of it and gazed round them in the clear morning light. Yes, it was theirs. Everything that they could see was theirs. In the ecstasy of that thought, they gamboled, don't know that word, round and round. They hurled themselves into the air in great leaps of excitement. They rolled in the dew. They cropped mouthfuls of sweet summer grass. They kicked up clouds of the black earth and snuffed its rich scent. Then they made a tour of inspection of the whole farm and surveyed with speechless admiration the plowland, the hayfield, the orchard, the pool, the spinney. It was as though they had never seen these things before, and even now they could hardly believe that it was all their own. Then they filed back to the farm buildings and halted in silence outside the door of the farmhouse. That was theirs. Farmhouse. Words are hard. I'm getting to the end of the chapter. That was theirs too, but they were frightened to go inside. After a moment, however, Snowball and Napoleon butted the door open with their shoulders, and the animals entered in single file, walking with the utmost care for fear of disturbing anything. They tiptoed from room to room, afraid to speak above a whisper, and gazing with a kind of awe at the unbelievable luxury, at the beds with their feather mattresses, the looking glasses, the horsehair sofa, the Brussels carpet, the lithograph of Queen Victoria. This tells you how old this is. Over the drawing room mantelpiece. They were just coming down the stairs when Molly was discovered to be missing. Going back, the others found that she had remained behind in the best bedroom. She had taken a piece of blue ribbon from Mrs. Jones' dressing table and was holding it against her shoulder and admiring herself in the glass in a very foolish manner. The others reproached her sharply and they went outside. Some hams hanging in the kitchen were taken out for burial. Aw, I guess that would be a bummer, walking up and seeing your friends in the fridge. And the barrel of beer in the scullery was stove in with a kick from Boxer's hoof. Otherwise, nothing in the house was touched. A unanimous resolution was passed on the spot that the farmhouse should be preserved as a museum. All were agreed that no animal must ever live there. The animals had their breakfast, and then Snowball and Napoleon called them together again. "Comrades," said Snowball, "it is 6:30, and we have a long day before us. Today we begin the hay harvest, but there is another matter that must be attended to first." The pigs now revealed that during the past 3 months, they had taught themselves to read and write from an old spelling book which had belonged to Mrs. Jones' children, those old little antique spellers, and which had been thrown on the rubbish heap. Napoleon sent for pots of black and white paint and led the way down to the five-barred gate that gave onto the main road. Then Snowball, for it was Snowball who was best at writing, took a brush between the knuckles of his trotter, painted out Manor Farm, scratched it out, from the top bar of the gate, and in its place painted Animal Farm. They said the title! This was to be the name of the farm from now onwards. After this, they went back to the farm buildings where Snowball and Napoleon sent for a ladder which they caused to be set against the end wall of the big barn. They explained that by their studies of the past 3 months, the pigs had succeeded in reducing the principles of animalism to 7 commandments. These 7 commandments would now be inscribed on the wall. They would form an unalterable law by which all the animals, remember that, by which all the animals on Animal Farm must live forever after. With some difficulty, for it is not easy for a pig to balance himself on a ladder, Snowball climbed up and set to work, with Squealer a few rungs below him holding the paint pot. The commandments were written on the tarred wall in great white letters that could be read 30 yards away. They ran thus: the 7 commandments. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes. No animal shall sleep in a bed. No animal shall drink alcohol. No animal shall kill any other animal. And all animals are equal. You know, sounds good. Sure. It was very neatly written, and except that friend was written frind, and one of the S's was the wrong way around. Give him a break, you know? The spelling was correct all the way through. Snowball read it out loud for the benefit of the others. All the animals nodded in complete agreement, and the cleverer ones at once began to learn the commandments by heart. Now, comrades, cried Snowball, throwing down the paintbrush to the hayfield, let us make it a point of honor to get in the harvest more quickly than Jones and his men could ever do. But at this moment, the 3 cows, who had seemed uneasy for some time past, set up a loud lowing. They had not been milked for 24 hours, and their udders were almost bursting. After a little thought, the pigs sent for buckets and milked the cows fairly successfully, their trotters being well adapted to this task. Soon there were 5 buckets of frothing, creamy milk, at which many of the animals looked with considerable interest. What's going to happen to all that milk? Said someone. Jones used to sometimes to mix some of it in our mash, said one of the hens. Never mind the milk, comrades, cried Napoleon, placing himself in front of the buckets. That will be attended to. The harvest is more important. Comrade Snowball will lead the way. I shall follow in a few minutes. Forward, comrades, the hay is waiting. So the animals trooped down to the hayfield to begin the harvest, and when they come back in the evening, it was noticed that the milk had disappeared. Anyway, there it goes, chapter 2. I hope that somebody gets something out of this, but if not, I'm actually really enjoying reading this. Again, I'm noticing a lot that I didn't pick up the first couple of read-throughs. I read this actually just a couple of years ago, so I can't even say I read it as a kid first, so maybe I'm just dumb. Anyway, we learn every day, right? So we will do chapter 3. We'll do it as soon as we can. Again, I'm sorry. I will try to have a better setup so I can see comments if there's any comments or anything like that. But even though if this looks silly, and even though if I look like a total dork doing this, you know, it's really the only way I can fight back is just kind of raise awareness that they're just books are important. They have value. They are not anything of the things that you're hearing in the news. You know, it's a really sad thing to see kind of where we're going with all this. There's never been a country that's ever come at books that has been happy they did it long term. Let's just phrase it like that. So anyway, be blessed. Again, vote. You got to vote today. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. Vote your conscience. You should always vote your conscience and what you believe in. Do try to make sure that what you believe in and what your conscience is allowing you to do is continually updated and fact checked. You know, keep releasing new versions of that because, you know, as we should grow as people, and our understanding of the world should grow as well. So there's a lot of black and white scenarios out there that are a lot more nuanced than either side is telling you that they are. And so we're just going to try to equip people to kind of cut through all that stuff so they can actually be informed and so they can actually make good decisions. So I love your faces. If you made it through to the end with me, you rock face. Thanks. Where's the off button?